And now, give it up for your average Joes. Your host, Oliver, Big O, White, and Dave. I don't need Antonio Brown. Alan!
What's going on? What's going on?
Hello, everybody. What's going on? Dave, how you doing, man?
Doing good, man. How are you?
I'm getting along here today. I want to first off start by apologizing to some of the listeners. This is out. Going to be coming out a day later than we were hoping. Last night we recorded the first show. We had some production difficulties, and it didn't record correctly. So we're a day behind. We didn't get a chance to cover. Well, we did yesterday, but we won't get a chance to cover the game from last night. Maybe we can chat about it a little bit here today, but certainly we want to get the show out as soon as possible for our listeners. And with that having been said, last week was our first show and our first video podcast, and really just had a outpouring of support. I was really happy with the turnout. I want to thank the people behind the scenes pushing, getting the word out on the episode, and just thank everybody who's listened and come back to listen for us.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with that as well. And I want to make sure that I appreciate the people that have returned from last week after, hearing me talking about not drafting Antonio Brown. For those who come back, definitely appreciate you as well.
Absolutely. So, yeah, we got a jam-packed show today. It was going to be a bit of an abbreviated show, like I said before. We did a whole hour segment yesterday and didn't quite work out the way we were hoping. But we're going to do a show real quickly here to get something out for the people, because we're the People's Fantasy Podcast. And I'm hoping one day we can get big enough to get The Rock out here to give us one of those. What do you think?
Yeah, that would be great. That would be awesome.
Absolutely. So real quickly, we're going to go through and finish up our ADP Zero segment. If you listeners out there remember, those were players that either Dave or myself weren't very high on and weren't taking in our drafts. Again, the drafts are over at this point, so we're going to shoot through that because we don't want to focus too much on something that's over and done with. But we do want to finish that segment. What we're going to do today is he's going to pick one of my players that I had on my list. I'm going to pick one of the players he had on his list, and we're going to try to convince each other that we were basically wrong on that particular player. I'll be really excited for that particular segment once the off season rolls back in around. I think it's going to be a really fun segment. Then we'll talk about some news and notes. We'll talk about one of the games this weekend, some of the potential big hitters, and then we're going to do our waiver wire who segment, which is really just a deep dive of players you possibly haven't heard of before that you may want to stick on your roster. So let's go ahead and jump right in with the ADP Zero. He's going to try to change my mind about someone. Go ahead, Dave. I'll let you start it off here.
All right. The first guy I'm going to take, or the guy I'm going to take from your list, I'm not going to tell you who it is yet. I got a little game as well. Listeners can take what they want to. What I'm going to do is say, this guy, we'll just name him number one. I'm going to read off some stats, and then I'm going to read off another guy's stats. I'm just going to have you choose between who you would take without knowing who each person is.
Okay. All right.
So, first guy we've got up, the last 2 years, his average was 84 catches, 81 yards, and 6 touchdowns. We'll call him, player one. And then player two, over the last 2 years, has 70 catches, 1,021 yards, and 6 touchdowns. So solely based off those statistics, who would you take between player one and player two?
Just kind of solely off of those numbers. And again, player one had 84 catches, you said?
Yes. Yeah.
And I'm assuming we're talking about PPR, correct?
Yeah, PPR format.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with player one.
All right. Okay. So I'm gonna go through all three of the other two players before I reveal who we're talking about. So the next guy, we're still comparing player number one. So the 84 catches, 1,081 yards, and 6 touchdowns. We're gonna compare him to 8 catches, 1,286 yards, and 5 touchdowns. Player three. So in this scenario, we taking player 1 or player 2.
Now you may have to repeat that for us, just kind of breaking out just a little bit on the phone there. Could you go ahead and repeat those stats again?
Yeah. So player 1, 84 catches, 1,081 yards and 6 touchdowns.
Right.
And then we're looking at player 3. He'll have 80 catches, 1,286 yards and 5 touchdowns.
PPR, that's going to be really close between the two. That's really, really close because you got 1 less touchdown, 4 less receptions, so that's a difference of, what are we talking about here? Somewhere around 10 points or so. But you got 200 more yards. So player 3 technically would probably be a little bit better, but in PPR, I like the touchdowns, I like the receptions, so I'll go player 1 again.
Okay. And for the sake of the showdown, I'll take it from your list that you picked. That player number 1 was Travis Kelce.
Okay.
And the 2 guys that we compared him to, first we compared him to A.J. Green, who you chose Travis Kelce over him. And then the second guy was T.Y. Hilton, who we could basically say that was a toss-up depending on format.
Right.
And, I know we usually talk about, I know you say that fantasy football is a statistics game, and it obviously plays into, if I'm going to take this guy, his situation matters, everything matters. So I just wanted to give those statistics because those are players that are going ahead of him. Now, for the sake of the argument, I'm going to go off of consistency. I want to talk about how consistent Travis Kelce is and just some quick numbers on his consistency. He's had more than 60 catches since 2014. He had 80 catches for the past 2 seasons. He's had more than 800 yards since 2014, 1,000 yards in the past 2 seasons. And then last year was his first time that he missed any time.
Right.
So you're getting a consistent player. You're getting a top-tier player. And I just think that looking at those looking at his numbers, looking at his consistency, looking at the players that are going around him, I think he fits exactly where he's going with.
Yeah, he's going around. He was going around round 3. And my argument initially was basically that he and possibly Watkins are going to serve that kind of field stretching role, big guy, can just throw it up to. Obviously, you got Tyreek Hill there who could stretch the field as well, but we've seen in preseason that he was catching a lot underneath. And that we just don't know what's going to happen with this new quarterback. Obviously, had Alex Smith still been there, would have been really high on Kelce. And my contention was, hey, take a couple of touchdowns away, take a few yards away, maybe a couple 100 yards. He's not going to, live up to the 3rd round ADP. However, I mean, as you say, he's a big play guy. He's been consistent. I mean, I can come around to the idea of picking him in the 3rd round and having him as a linchpin in your lineup. So, Kelce was one of those controversial guys that I had that I put there. So certainly, I think that at the very least he's going to be serviceable. He's going to be a tight end 1, likely top 5. So if you're a guy that says, hey, in my strategy, I want a top tight end, he's not a bad pick at all. Round 3, round 4, absolutely.
Absolutely.
Okay. All right, so we'll go ahead and mark that down in the win column for you. We'll take that one. The guy that I chose, I'm just going to go ahead and skip around Antonio Brown. We all know you're crazy on that end. I think even if you got a 50-50 shot that Antonio Brown makes it through the season, you gotta pick him up. But I really want to focus more on Alex Collins, the guy that you had. And we spoke about him a little bit yesterday, but I started doing a little research, and the more I did on Alex Collins, the more I liked this guy. And I did a lot of research online, got some information from playerprofile.com. Hopefully, really good site. Hopefully one day they'll be a sponsor or whatnot. But on their site, they said his best comparable is Mark Ingram. And I mentioned to you before that Mark Ingram, I was sleeping on Mark Ingram. I hadn't known how consistent he's been over the years, getting close to or right at or just over 1,000 yards, and that's typically sharing the backfield with someone else. The deeper I looked, the more I liked. Alex Collins is going to have the 12th easiest schedule against running backs this year. So he's going to go up against some softer defenses where he can exploit his talents. And I think overall he's just going to be a beast because when you're looking at him from last year and don't realize that he really didn't get the nod until week 4. He wasn't the main guy in the backfield until week 4, and he still amassed 973 yards, 200 yards in the air receiving, and several touchdowns. That's almost a 1,000-yard season without playing the full season as the full-time back. And what I did was I took his yards per carry, and 4.6 is what he averaged on the season, and just multiplied it out, extrapolated it for those 3 games. He would have gained another at least 110 yards in rushing, giving him over 1,000 yards on the season, pretty close to 1,100 yards on the season. And then another great stat, another great thing that, in fact, people don't know is he didn't catch a pass until week 7. Not one pass. I don't mean, he had 1 or 2 targets. He had 0 catches until week 7. So half the season's gone. He has 0 catches. If we double his catch total and give him 400 yards receiving on the year, he's right at 1,500 all-purpose yards, which would have put him top 10 last season. He is a really good running back. He's in a really good situation right now. I know you do have Dixon there who may take some touches there here and there. You also have Buck Allen there doing some passing down work. But you could see last year them getting really more and more comfortable with Alex Collins. And as long as he controls his fumbles, I think he's going to be in for a great season. But before I jump away from here and get your decision on him, I also want to throw out a couple of more stats. Last year, he was second in breakaway runs. What that basically means is runs of 15 yards or more, he ranked second in the league. He was 4th in the league against stacked fronts. What that basically means is when the defense put 8 men in the box, Alex Collins didn't care. He still averaged 5.3 yards per carry against stacked fronts. That is insane. Typically, that means they're going to stop him. They are aiming to stop him. We're going to put an extra man up just to make sure you don't do it, and he still did it. I think this guy's an absolute monster. Is going to be in for a big season. What do you think?
I mean, we talked about it before, and then each time lost the word, and I continue to regret the fact that I have 0 shares of Alex Collins on any of my 20 fantasy teams that I have out there. Look, I don't care how many people they put up there. We're handing the ball off. So that means that's definitely a W for you. I should have got some Alex Collins.
Well, it's not too late in daily fantasy, so perhaps you can get a little bit. He has a good matchup this week, so he may be someone you want to slide into your lineup there. So, good. We're going to go ahead and roll past the ADP Zero segment here. Go ahead and move on here to news and notes. And there's several big things that's been happening, but none bigger than Le'Veon Bell being out. And no one knows when this guy's going to show up. What do you take from the situation?
Man, it sucks for fantasy owners that have Le'Veon. It definitely sucks that because you spent around 1 top 4 pick on Le'Veon. So you definitely have big plans for him. And not only does it suck for fantasy, I feel like it sucks for the Steelers. They have already, basically kind of moved on. I don't know how much the listeners know so far, but Le'Veon's agent has basically said, he's not playing week 1. He's not playing Sunday against the Browns.
Right.
He's going to try to save himself for long-term value when he moves on next year. And the biggest thing for me is there's reports that his teammates, specifically the offensive linemen, have given up. Not necessarily given up, but they've turned on him. Let me not say given up. They've turned on him. They're looking towards James Conner. they've come out and said things like, Le'Veon makes more than some of us combined, and we're the ones blocking for him, helping him get the job done.
Right.
So it hurts. Even that takes his value down now to where even if you're holding on to him and thinking, okay, he'll come back week 4 or 5, whatever, are his teammates going to be open to receiving him?
Yeah. That's certainly something that you have to consider, especially when it's the offensive lineman saying, hey, this guy is not putting team first at this point, and we're moving on thinking about someone else running the ball. It's really tough, and I don't know if he's helping himself out at all here in this situation, because you got to think, when next year comes around and he is looking for a new team, how are other teams going to view his actions? How are they going to view him not putting team first when a fair deal is possibly being put on the table before him? So he may not get the warm reception, and I don't think he's going to get some money. He's going to get paid, but the question is going to be exactly, is he going to get what he wants? He's going to get exactly what the Steelers offered him or better. And then he's not helping himself, because if James Conner comes out and shows that he's capable, maybe it's more of a system thing than Le'Veon being a transcendent player. Maybe people are saying, hey, we can, get someone just as good as Le'Veon for $100 million less. Why are we spending all this money on this particular running back? And I'm all for running backs getting paid, but certainly I don't think the way he's going about this is probably going to lead to his getting exactly what he wants. But I guess time will tell there. I know for fantasy purposes, it's been pretty tough on some fantasy owners. I was likely one of the casualties of this. I have Le'Veon on one of my teams, one of my really, really important leagues, and because he's not playing this week, I had to slide him out and make the decision between Mike Wallace and Calvin Benjamin. And I was kind of high on Benjamin at the beginning of the fantasy season here, but as soon as they named Nathan Peterman the starter, I just got flashbacks of those 4 or 5 interceptions. Man, I'm like, I can see 100 yards passing in this game against Baltimore, who has a really good defense. Right. So I went ahead and threw Mike Wallace in my flex. And not sure if you watched the game last night or not, but Mike Wallace got a goose egg. He got squadoosh. Zero. Yeah, so thanks to Mike Wallace, I probably lost my week, and I really don't blame him. I watched the game, I watched about every snap, and I just don't think Nick Foles, and I'm almost blaming you there, Dave, because you're the resident Philly guy. Nick Foles can't throw a deep ball to save his life.
Hey, you know what? You're absolutely right. Let me not even try to protect that. You're absolutely right.
Oh, God.
And I know the funny thing is, when I was watching that yesterday, just real quick, we had talked last episode that Patrick Mahomes was either going to do Tyreek Hill or pick.
Right.
It seems like Foles is going to do Nelson Aguilar or sack.
Right.
Or throw away, or, it's just, I want Aguilar. If I can't get Aguilar, I don't know what to do.
Right. Yeah. It was hard. I mean, and the thing is, with just talking about, Wallace, he had to step a few times. He was open a couple of times. He just put the ball out there and let him go run under it. You probably have a touchdown or a long play, and he just couldn't get it out there. I was so sick. But that's okay. You live and you learn. He won't be in my lineup next week. Maybe when Wentz comes back, I'll take a look. But, yeah, that hurt. All right, so we'll move on from Lev Bell here. Hopefully things will work out in that situation. I did want to talk a little bit here about Jacksonville, Marquise Lee's being out. And now there's kind of question marks between who's going to lead that wide receiver core. What do you think about Keelan Cole this year?
I love Keelan Cole. Actually, before Marquise Lee even went down, I was wanting Keelan Cole over Marquise Lee.
Oh wow!
I think Keelan Cole can be the number one out of that receiving core. I know that we had a small sample size with him last year, or that he went crazy at the end of the year last year. So they've got tape and everything now, but I still feel like Keelan Cole is personally more talented than the receivers they have there.
Right.
I know they brought in Dante Moncrief. They're paying him. That's great. I like Keelan Cole a lot.
Okay. Now, do you think he's gonna put up wide receiver 1 numbers this year, wide receiver 2? Where do you think he's gonna end up?
don't want to say wide receiver one numbers, and I don't put that on. I'm not taking that talent away from Keelan. I'm taking that as Jacksonville is a run first team, so I don't think that he's going to be able to put up the wide receiver one numbers. But I think you can do Keelan as a two. Definitely, certainly a three or a flex, but
right.
I think he can give you wide receiver two.
Yeah, I'm really excited about Keelan this year as well. I mean, just the way he ended off last year, and then obviously the lack of a true number one there. As you mentioned, Dante Moncrief was there. They got D.D. Westbrook, who had a pretty decent preseason, but they're not even starting D.D. And, I mean, if he's taking the Marquise Lee role, and let's say he's possibly a little more talented, you can see some big things. Because Marquise Lee did, soak up a few targets. They have to pass the ball at some point in time, and I see a lot of those balls going to Keelan Cole. Perhaps it'll be kind of like Nelson Aguilar last night, where the ball went to him every single play. So hopefully you got some shares of Cole out there. I think he's going to be a good play. Last piece of news we'll get to here is Adrian Peterson. He's been named the starter in Washington. Do you think that's a good move?
If you need a running back, I would say take a chance on AP. There in Washington, as in PPR leagues, I don't think AP is I don't think that's a big person you need to have on your team. Chris Thompson's still there. Chris Thompson still has his role. Chris Thompson's still gonna catch the ball.
Yeah. Right.
So if you're looking at standard, and like I said, if you're needing a role, just a running back, yeah, I would go after AP. I mean, it's not a terrible move. There are definitely running backs. There are definitely other running backs that you could take that would be a worse pick than Adrian Peterson. I would say like middle of the pack AP, but yeah, definitely I would take a look.
Would you take AP or Jordan Wilkins this year?
I would have to take. Personally, I might go with Jordan Wilkins, just because of the fact that, right now with Marlon Mack being sidelined and Nyheim Hines, not really living up to what I think the coach thought he was going to be. Right now, Jordan Wilkins is supposed to start Sunday, and I'm pretty sure he's going to take he's going to have the passing downs, he's going to have the rush, he's going to have all of that.
Yeah.
But AP is going to be getting spelled by Chris Thompson. So if I'm looking for a back that I want to be sure of, it's going to get a lot of the touches, I would go with Wilkins.
Yeah. I think to your point there, Nyheim Hines had some fumbling issues, if I'm not mistaken, here in the preseason, and that's probably going to preclude him from getting on the field until they're sure that's under wraps. So, that might not be a bad call. I think the same thing as you with AP, as long as it's you're running back 3. If you're in a pinch, maybe running back 2, he can have a few games. They do got some people behind him that can spell him. Chris Thompson's going to probably have a big year. Because before I was kind of low on Thompson, thinking about Darius Geis there, that he can actually catch the ball in the backfield pretty well. But now no one can fill that role of a Chris Thompson. So he should have a pretty big year there. And then they still have some J.P. Ryan and Rob Kelly, who can come in and take some work, maybe even some goal line work away. So it's going to be, I think, tough sledding, but he may have a couple of good games. He might be a good best ball pick. I don't have any best ball leagues, not that kind of a deal, but possibly someone you might want to take a look at. Well, let me compare one more person here. Would you take AP or, let's say, a guy like Jamal Williams?
Oh, give me Jamal. If I'm in the system with Aaron Rodgers, I want him.
Right. Yeah.
I want the guy in the system with Aaron Rodgers. Yeah.
Okay. Just want to kind of see, because they had similar situation where there's a big time passing catching back there with Ty Montgomery, so he should be on third downs. But yeah, I think I'll take Jamal as well. They'll have more opportunities, certainly. All right, good deal. That'll wrap up the news and notes segment for this episode. I want to go ahead and jump on real quickly one of the big upcoming games this week between New England and Houston. There's all kinds of storylines here. I mean, you can basically just pick one. What do you think about the New England backfield here? Who do you have, Sony or James White or Burkhead? Who do you think is going to be the man?
First game, I think the man is gonna be Burkhead. I mean, as long as he's healthy, I think that's their guy. He's goal line. He's the goal line guy. He's the third down back. And surprising to me, which I did not think this coming in. But last year when he played, he caught some balls out of the backfield, and Brady was not afraid to throw it to him. And it wasn't just wide open. Some of these were tight, and
Right.
Rex was pulling them in. So. Yeah, I like Burkhead coming out of the backfield. James White's gonna get his touches; they're not gonna go away. But if I had to choose a starter coming out of that backfield for this week 1, I'm gonna take Burkhead.
I actually love Burkhead. I don't have a whole lot of shares of him because some things started changing in the landscape here with during the drafts. But I love Burkhead this year. The news of his knee having issues there, perhaps some kind of an MCL sprain or whatnot, or ligament, whatever, kind of backed me off him a little bit that he may have some injury concerns. But I think Belichick just loves him out of the backfield, catching the ball, running the ball. With the lack of wide receiver depth there, I wouldn't be surprised to see him in the slot some. So he's going to be all over the field. They did bring Jeremy Hill in. I think he's going to steal some early down touches, but not to the point where it's going to be of any concern, because last year when they had Dion Lewis, who I actually had on one of my fantasy squads, no matter how good Dion Lewis looked, they still snatched him off the field and put Burkhead in for a series. So I think they want to give this backfield to him. I think certainly, again, when Sony comes back around, you're going to have some different dynamics there. But as long as there's question marks surrounding Sony and we got Edelman out on suspension, I think Burkhead's going to be a focal point in a huge, huge role. So I wouldn't be surprised to see running back 1 numbers out of him for a few weeks.